What is going on, guys? I wanted to do a little day in the life thing because these are some interesting times and I'm doing something that I haven't done in a long time, which is leave the house. It's been like a week. I left the house once in the last week for grocery shopping. With everything going on, of course, it's been interesting. But something that I don't think I've ever had to consider this before even, rationing insulin. So my wife and I just moved to LA about 2 weeks ago. Great timing with what's going on, right? And we get up here, I brought enough insulin for about 6 weeks, and we had planned on going back down in 5 weeks for my sister's wedding. And with everything going on, lots of limitations being placed, the wedding was canceled, my poor sister. But unfortunately, that also means that we were not planning on going down to my parents' house to get the rest of my insulin. And so I had to make a decision. I was like, all right, I have enough insulin left at this point to get me through about 2 more weeks, and if I start, cutting back on how much food I eat, doing more activity, I can use less insulin. But is that what I want to do? And so for a couple days, I started rationing my insulin a little bit, and it was interesting, to say the least, because I've never had to do that before, at least for this amount of time, right? There have been trips where I didn't plan enough, I had to ration for an extra day or something, but realizing that if more restrictions were put into place, right? We've seen more restrictions on non-essential businesses closing and on travel restrictions and all these things. And I thought to myself, if I don't figure out how to get to my insulin soon, there might be some restrictions in place that make it very difficult for me to get to my supply of insulin. So I made the choice to drive down to San Diego today and grab the rest of my insulin. I got this, let's see if I can find it. Got this temperature not control, I always say that. This temperature, I don't know, like a thermometer type thing. It's called Med Angel, it's awesome. And it tells you what temperature the surrounding environment is. So you put it with your insulin, it tells you if your insulin is in range or out of range. So I'm gonna use that plus a cooler to get the rest of my insulin up here to LA. And gotta drive down to San Diego to make sure that, if there were any more restrictions placed on travel, even with driving, in the next week, that I at least have my insulin, right? So I decided it was a priority for me to get down there. And in addition to doing that, let's see if I can grab this guy. This is my my survivalist backpack. Actually, there's so many stories with this, the traveling. But in that backpack, I've actually got, some of you guys know I have a special kind of water that I drink. It's called ionized water, and it changes the pH of the water, and on the lower end of the pH, at 2.5 pH, it becomes a disinfectant and a sanitizing agent. So I've been spraying our apartment like crazy. I've been spraying the doorknobs and mailboxes around our apartment in LA. My neighbors don't even know I'm saving their lives because it kills viruses and bacteria and everything. So I'm bringing down 1 liter of that stuff for my parents to spray their house with as well. So I'm going down to get insulin, but also to help them disinfect their surroundings and make sure they're all safe and good to go too, because this thing's serious. So that's where I'm at now. I gotta go drive down, got a couple hours driving, and gonna grab my insulin, say what's up to my folks. We'll see you there. Alright guys, I just had to share this part. This is probably one of the weirdest things about this whole experience is there's no traffic, and this is LA. There's like a couple cars out, and that's it. So the cool thing is the first time I've ever driven from LA to San Diego with no traffic. It's gonna be like an hour or an hour and a half less than what it usually is, which is nuts. I was expecting 3 to 3.5 hours, it's gonna be about 2. So that's cool, some silver lining, right? Still driving, still got ways to go, but keep you guys updated. Oh my goodness, Misty. Misty, come here. Come here. Oh. Okay. Oh, oh my baby. Okay, okay. Alright guys, so I know this is like wrapping up the video basically when the day's over, but today was very hectic. I had a couple hours to see pretty much every member of my family minus one sister. Saw some friends, got a lot done, some errands, some appointments, And one of the reasons why I was trying to make it to see all my family members, in addition to the picking things up from each place, was, so I mentioned earlier, right, the 2.5 ionized water. This is a sanitizing agent, it's a disinfectant. So I was filling it up and making sure that all of my sisters got access to it, and my parents, because they all work in the medical field. And there's a lot going on now with current events, right, to say the least. And the medical staff are getting hit really hard. A lot of the supplies are running very short, to the point where medical staff, like my sisters, are not getting the protective equipment that they need to stay safe themselves. And it's really messed up. It's really unfortunate. And so I make sure that they have the water that sanitizes their environment. So I said, look guys, get a spray bottle. I'm gonna bring down the sanitizing water for you. I took the cork off, I had them smell it. It smells like, I don't even know, chlorine, but it's water, which is the coolest part because one of them has a baby, and I was like, look, it's super safe around babies. And so I made sure they had that. I said, clean your whole apartment, stay safe, stay sanitary, or be sanitary. But one of my sisters that I dropped it off to is a type 1 diabetic, and she's also an ICU nurse as well. And man, it's difficult imagining the situation that she's in, because she knows that during this difficult time, there's a good chance she's going to come into contact directly with people who test positive for this virus. And unfortunately, they don't have the equipment necessary to keep them safe, right? The things that they need. So ultimately, I came down to San Diego to grab my insulin. I knew that if, you know, travel laws got more strict, if more restrictions were placed, whatever the case may be, I wanted to be prepared. And it was interesting because I've never had to really consider rationing insulin long term before, you know, more than a couple weeks. And that was interesting. Being in a place mentally where I was like, wow, if I do run out of insulin, things could take a turn for the worse quite rapidly. And deciding on what actions I could take to make my insulin last longer, right? I could ration it, which is not healthy. Can lead to some very, very dangerous scenarios, especially if you're not taking as much as you need. Letting your blood sugars run high, I do not recommend that. That is very dangerous. But realistic actions that I could take: eating less food, right? Not ideal, but technically an option. Exercising more, it's a big one. Can increase your insulin sensitivity, which means you require less insulin overall. And I did use that, started doing some at-home workouts. And you know, I'm probably gonna release a few of those on YouTube. So at the end of this video, if you're not subscribed already, I highly recommend that you subscribe to this channel, because there will be some diabetic friendly workouts that I'm putting out. But you know, realizing I could eat less carbs, eat less fats, right? They essentially lead to a similar end result through different processes, which leads to taking less insulin. But then realizing, of course, the best course of action for me is to drive down to San Diego. Right? It's a long drive, but it's worth it. Say hi to my family, give them some disinfectant water, grab my insulin, and bounce back up to LA. So that's what I did. That's what today was for. Getting my insulin, making sure that I have enough insulin, so that if there are any emergency scenarios, that I have enough to get through. And I want to encourage you guys to take a look through your stash, right? Look through your diabetic supplies, whether you wear a CGM, an insulin pump, your MDI, whatever you use to test your blood sugars, to take your insulin. Make sure you have enough of your supplies, but also, of course, of your insulin itself. That is very important for you to have enough of that. And if you don't, I encourage you to fight for whatever you have to do to get more insulin. Make sure you have enough in your fridge, you know, to survive. It's life or death for us. So it was an interesting place to be mentally today and over the last week, to think about how I might ration my insulin until I could get more. And today, getting to a place where I'm like, okay, good. Now I have enough insulin. I'm at peace. But I want to encourage you guys, check your stash, make sure you got enough supplies for whatever lays ahead. You should always make sure that you are prepared, right? I think that's one of the best lessons that I've learned from being a type 1 diabetic is we have to be prepared. We have to be ready for whatever life throws at us, whether it's a low blood sugar or a high blood sugar or even a world crisis where we're required to have enough supplies to get through a few weeks, maybe even a few months. So have a look, make sure you got enough, and let me know how you're dealing with this whole thing in the real world. I want to hear you guys' stories. I want to hear what you're going through, what you've done to prepare for this, maybe what stuff you're doing at home to keep you from going bored or going mad, right? Let me know what you're doing to pass the time, and you know, if you need support or encouragement or motivation, whatever it is, drop a comment below. Someone else might be in a similar situation, or someone else might be able to help you. And if you guys are looking for a community of type 1 diabetics, we've got a free support group on Facebook. And I'll drop a link down below for that. It is called Diabetic Warriors, a diabetic support group, and it's a lot of fun in there. We just crossed, what are we at now? 1,500 members. So it's pretty sweet, it's pretty strong. I encourage you to reach out, support others as you seek support for yourself. We are only as strong as our weakest link, and in these groups, it is obvious that we are all very strong. We are all very capable of fighting for ourselves, fighting for others, fighting for our loved ones, right? I know not everyone in there is a type 1 diabetic. There are a lot of parents of type 1s, and they are some of the strongest people that I've ever met. It's incredible. So jump in that Facebook group, drop a comment below on this video. Let me know what you guys are up to, how you're doing, and I wish you guys the best. I really do. So this is my day, driving down, making the drive for insulin, for getting some good cleaning supplies out to my family, and saying hi without saying hi too close. That was interesting. Not being able to hug my family, keeping our social distance, right? But that's where we're at right now, doing what we can to flatten the curve, keep this thing contained. So hopefully you guys are doing well. Hopefully your blood sugars are cooperating. If they're running a little bit high, I encourage you to work out, get some exercise, get moving. It's gonna help activate that insulin and lower those blood sugars quite a bit. So that's it for me today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Remember to subscribe, okay? Where are we gonna do that? We are going to hit that button right there. Make sure you subscribe. The next video is gonna be awesome. I guarantee it, because there's videos going up weekly. Have an awesome day, and keep up the fight.